Just sit there and wait. It is bright enough that my eyes are having trouble adjusting. I am selecting the question for today's topic and highlighting it so I know to, and adding some X's at the beginning so I can move it there. Anyway, can I? No, there's probably nothing I can do. Let's see. There's pretty much nothing to update on, like, to talk about personally that has changed in the last week. I've been doing these more regularly, which is good. I'm glad to be getting out, but it kind of... okay. What has changed since last week? I got in the webcams that I talked about, and they work okay. They're about as cheap as I could get for what I needed. So they work fine. I used one for a work meeting this week. But that means I was able to take down all of the cameras and everything else that was there, and put them into a box and just put the box aside for now. Because if you were following along from the recent times, what I've been thinking about doing is a series based on things that I own, stuff that I like, just talking about things I've acquired over the years. Some of the oldest stuff I have, some of the newest stuff, what I like about it, things like that. Just making something because I don't really have a full-fledged out reason. It's just something that itches that I want to scratch and see if the videos would come out well. So I've got a whole idea to use the cameras for that. But really, I don't have the space for that right now until we move, which will be several months. So it's there in my head, and I keep thinking about it and coming up with different ideas of how to do things and stuff like that. But for the most part, it probably won't happen anytime soon. But getting the webcams allowed me to take down those cameras, and the webcams are easier. I also got a gift card from work for being recognized for hard work. We have the opportunity to get that once a month. So I spent that immediately. As soon as it happened, I went, okay, what can I spend it on? And I got some real cheap, again, some real cheap lights that are different. I've got a couple of video lights. I've got like little ones, if I could get my hands on them. I've got little ones that are super nice, things like this that I can put in different ways if I'm trying to light up, something. Me, usually, that's why I keep them in this bag, is if I'm recording and it's real dark, I don't have as much sunlight and I still need light for the video, I put those on. But I needed something. I've got some that I've picked up over the years, but they're more bigger and expensive. And again, if I wind up using them in the situation that I'm talking about, I will not have them to use for this other video idea. So I picked up some cheap ones that also are not battery. That's the big thing, is that they're not battery and they plug in through USB. So the power strip that I use for my computer has specific USB ports right on there. So I can plug in those two lights, and then I've got a webcam and I can light up, and for the purposes of recording, when I get back home and I'm editing, it should look a little bit better, or at least not as bad as it was. That's all I'm going for. It was real bad before. So I did that. And that's pretty much it. For the most part, it was a regular work week, nothing out of the ordinary. I've been playing the same games and watching the same shows as what we talked about last time, so nothing much to update there. It'll be a shorter video today. But I did pick out a question. I did look through, and this was already something that was on my mind. Do a grocery pickup every week, right? Order the groceries, whatever we get. But we were missing quite a few things. They were just out of stock. And there is another grocery store, it's just further away. So we planned for a second pickup, which we don't usually do. And it was like, all right, well, we can do that. We can get that done. And we go out Sunday morning and do it, and I can record through the GoPro and this camera the landscape and show the snowy landscape that we drive through. And I can have that on hand to reference in a few months when we get ready to leave, because, again, kind of close to home. I talked about this in the other video. But anyway, one of the things we picked up, because we went to because we could do another grocery store, they had, a sale on the plant-based meat that I already get. Although I get as cheap as possible, usually the brands and things like that. They had the Beyond brand is actually like tastes really good and usually is really expensive, like twice as much as some of the other like Morningstar or who's another one that I'll purchase from. All the plant-based, usually frozen meat options is what I eat now. So we had the option to get that. And so the Beyond stuff was on sale. So we picked up quite a lot of that, stocked up for that for the whole month. And one of the things that they had was essentially plant-based, but steak tips, which I went, ooh, I haven't had that from Beyond yet. I used to like eating, when I ate more meat, I would get that kind of stuff. And then, so I managed to pick that up. They actually had it in stock. We got that. And it was like, all right, well, what can I use this for? And I started racking my head going, what would I make with this? And then it dawned on me, something that I ate a lot of that would have steak in it. And it brings us to the question. The question that I picked today was, what is your perfect meal? Describe it. Everything from the company to the setting, the music, of course, the food, something like that. Well, I don't have a whole situation like that because I don't think I've experienced a perfect meal yet. But I can tell you, when we lived back in Georgia, there was a Mexican restaurant that was excellent. I enjoy Mexican quite a lot. And we wound up finding one. We wound up moving to a place, like we'd always had Mexican, and we tried different things. And we ate out a lot. One of the reasons I gained as much weight as I did is because we're very bad about that. It is delicious. But we wound up moving into an apartment that we stayed for a few years, and unfortunately, there was a Mexican restaurant right down the road, pretty much walking distance, but it's right there. And so we got it pretty much every week. Maybe not every single week, but at least twice a month. And at first I tried a couple different things. I like burritos. I like, different things like that. I enjoy that. And they had something called Texas rice. And once I discovered that was all I ate. I got that every single time. Texas rice is Mexican spiced rice with steak, chicken, and shrimp, all on top of basically bed of rice, all of that on top, and then just drowned in white queso. It's terrible for you. So bad. Delicious. I would get that. Comes with a couple corn tortillas. I'd get that, and then like sour cream and tomatoes on the side because I enjoy that as well. And then I would just make little tacos out of that and then just eat the rest of it. And it's perfect. Like I discovered, I would have said growing up, lasagna would have been my favorite food because I always really enjoyed lasagna. And it would be like, family dinner, going for Italian. What is Michael getting? It's lasagna. And then I kind of grew out of that a little bit because I realized there were so many other types of food as well. And even better, most places we go to, you could get a sampler that came with lasagna and other stuff. So excellent. But after a while, at some point, I discovered nachos. I was like, wait a minute, nachos are amazing. So I really started enjoying nachos. And then it became, wait, I can get nachos, but then just have the chips and basically just eat it like a dip. And so that became a lot of what I would eat. And that's basically what I do with the Texas rice now. Instead of making little tacos, I just make the thing of Texas rice and then just eat it with chips. Hence, coming back to, I have plant-based steak tips. I was able to get plant-based chicken that isn't breaded because breading doesn't really work when you have to put the whole thing together in the queso and everything. So getting unbreaded ones that taste good has been difficult. Some of them taste too much like tofu, and I don't like the taste of tofu, which is unfortunate because I don't eat meat pretty much at all anymore. I haven't had it in a good bit. I've cut it down significantly. It's an every once in a while thing instead of every single meal, basically. But I don't think there's any way to do a plant-based shrimp. So, steak and chicken, though, with white queso and rice and refried beans. I got all that. And that will be what I'm eating for lunch today. And that will be what I eat for lunch tomorrow as well, because there will be leftovers. I have to limit myself. I think I'll need to put a vegetable in there with that as well. Corn, probably. That'd be a good one. And a salad. I'll round out the meal so it's not quite as bad as it used to be, where I'd go, great, I'm going to make a massive meal and split it into two, and then I just eat the whole thing at once. Too much. But anyway, I really enjoy making food. I really enjoy eating food. And I like, if I had to pick a type of food, that would be, again, I don't really have a setting. I would enjoy a fancy meal. I'm sure I would like a place to go with the atmosphere and the whole thing, but I'm not interested in going in public places currently because there's still a pandemic going on, so that will not happen anytime soon. So I'm perfectly fine. We basically haven't eaten out hardly at all. It's been curbed entirely. We still in Wyoming would get delivery every once in a while, or go pick it up more often because we were trying to save money and things like just inflation and everything going up. The cost of everything goes up and up, and our salaries do not go up and up. So we tried to curve that back as much as we can, and we just don't have a choice here. I can probably count on one hand the amount of times that we've eaten out since we moved here because we just don't have the option. It's way too expensive. We got barbecue at one point. One of the times that we ate meat, there was a barbecue place here, and it just wasn't good. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't really good. And it was like $80 for the two of us. And that's insane to me because especially when we would be able to, like in Georgia, we would get that. Or even in Wyoming, it was less than that. And Wyoming had a barbecue place that we tried once because that is, I mean, I don't eat meat very often, hardly at all. But boy, brisket is good. Anyway, so yes, I like to cook. I like to make food, and that would be if I had to pick a type of food specifically. I don't know if I could, but I really enjoy things that have a sauce. I I used to make pasta and I'd make, a pot of pasta and just put the sauce right in it. And I would never do that now. Now I always cook the sauce or even have it uncooked, I like the mix of hot and cold as well, especially if I have an option for that. I basically eat rice and beans 5 days a week now. But I put sauce on it. And we got like a sampler pack of a bunch of different barbecue sauces. And so that's good. And so hot food, cold sauce kind of equals out. It narrows out. I really like the way that those things play together, and I do that very often. I like that. I like things that I can dip in a sauce, like nuggets or French fries. If a food comes with a sauce, I really like that. And that kind of is what, like, if I make a Mexican dish and I have a cheese, a queso or something like that, or guacamole, salsa. Not so much on the salsa. If I do too much tomato, the acid will hurt my stomach. I discovered that. But anyway, I want to make more sauces. I want dishes with sauces. I would be perfectly happy. I mean, most of my meals that I cook, I would happily add a sauce to, but I haven't been able to find a way to do that as a plant-based, like pan sauces that you make, especially, you grill a steak or chicken or anything like that, and then what's left over in the pan, reduce that with some wine or vinegar or something like that and make a pan sauce. That'd be great, but with plant-based options, you can't really do that because there's almost no fat because it's not an animal product. So you wind up adding it in. I put oil in the pan or something like that to keep it from sticking, but there's not really a sauce left over, and there's nothing to like scrape up off the bottom of the pot and make a sauce. So it kind of lacks there. I can just add butter, but I also try to be healthier, so just make a butter sauce for everything. And that would be delicious. Noodles with butter sauce, rice with butter sauce. It's just butter, and butter's delicious. Anyway. So yeah, I really enjoy food, and I'm really looking forward to making that this weekend. I probably won't be able to start it right away. I've got a rice cooker, so I'll put the rice in the rice cooker after I get back. That reminds me, I brought a bread roll. It's my lunch bag. I forgot. I did pack myself something today because I don't have any granola bars or anything. It's a bread roll. I made this. I really enjoy baking bread. And so I made some bread. That's usually something I'll make a big batch of bread and have that for a few weeks. And I really enjoy it. And my significant other really enjoys it because fresh baked bread tastes delicious. It's been really hard to get bread flour. I haven't been able to do that for a few weeks. So anyway, yeah, good stuff. I'll probably chow down on that here in a minute before I drive home. And that way, that'll hold me over until after, because I go home and I got to unload the car. I got all these bags and all these cameras and stuff like that. And then I got to take a shower because I usually smell bad and get everything there. And then by the time I get done with all of that, it's like an hour after I get home and I'm hungry. So at that point, I might be able to make a mid-afternoon Texas rice. Quite looking forward to that. And then I've forgotten what else I'm making this weekend. I make some weekend meals, but that would be, if I had to pick it, some kind of food. It's asking specifically perfect, which I don't think there's any perfection, but I would enjoy having a meal with my significant other with really good food. And if we cook it, even better. We've done a few things. We've made pasta from scratch. Eggs are just basically impossible to get now, and I don't really eat eggs anyway anymore, so it's tough to do that. An eggless pasta, I'm sure it exists, but I haven't tried it. I baked something last weekend. It was around Valentine's Day, and there was I don't go for sweets hardly at all. If I get something, I want it to be, I don't want to say meaty, but savory. I don't really go for sweets all that often, but every once in a while I'll get a craving, and I'll go, okay, I'll have a sweet, and I'll have a little bit. And so last weekend, on Sunday, there came a request for sweets. It's like, can you make something with what we have? It's like, I might be able to. Let me see. And I look at what all we've got, and it's like, all right, well, we got cocoa powder and sugar and flour, and you can probably make cookies. And I start looking through, and I go, wait, I could make brownies. We don't have eggs, but I've found a recipe for eggless brownies. You use more oil, and we've got almond milk, so that worked because we didn't have any regular milk. So yeah, brownies from scratch. No box, nothing like that. Never done that before. Turned out really well. And about midway through following these recipes and making the brownies, I realized, I was like, well, I don't have anything to spice it up. Brownies are not bad. There's nothing wrong with that. But I did want it to be a little bit more. What could I do with, I've got powdered sugar, I've got milk, and I've watched more than enough Babish to know how to make a frosted. And so I just double check and I look up a recipe and I go, okay, I can make a topping to this. And my thought was going to be, I'll make two. I'll make one that's white with just the powdered sugar, and then one that's a mix of powdered sugar and cocoa powder to make it a chocolate glaze, kind of. I don't know I don't know if it was a frosting, an icing, a glaze. It's probably more of a glaze. And my thought, I've seen that before, where you do one and you put the white on, you take a fork and you make a pattern throughout it. It comes out nice. It didn't work at all for that. It all blended together. It was just chocolate on top, but you had that creamy on top of that dense, thick chocolate brownie, and it was delicious. We still have way more of that than either one of us needs to eat realistically, but I'll have a bite every once in a while, or a little section of it heated up in the microwave. Oh, that was really good. I'm really proud of it. It didn't look great, but it tasted amazing. It's kind of hard to go wrong with butter and sugar, isn't it? So I don't do baking all that often. And when I do, it doesn't usually look great, but the taste is there. I'm happy about that. I guess baking bread, I've been doing way more often. I've started doing that, and it took a little bit to get used to the altitude up here, but I got a solid recipe down now, and now I understand why you've got, the I don't want to say stereotype, but kind of with like grandma's recipe of like written down on a index card or something like that, and you don't deviate from it. And it's like, well, if you got used to baking in your kitchen at your altitude, yeah, that's going to be the same. That's not changing so much, and it's pretty solid. So it took me a bit, and I'll be interested to see what happens when we move, because we probably won't be at this altitude again, and my recipe will have to change. But for the time being, it's solid. It makes good bread, and I'm quite happy with that. Pizza dough needs a little bit of work. The last time I made it, it turned out too much like a bread. It rose. It rose in the oven, and so it didn't quite, and I went in and I poked it down, but it was already hardened by that point, because we only have a convection oven. There is no way to turn that. I've tried so many different ways to turn the fan off so that it just cooks from the heating element, and it doesn't dry out as much, but no dice. Just the oven that we have in the rental, it will be convection, which works but you have to prepare for that. You got to use a lower temperature. You got to watch the times, and especially you have to put in a cast iron skillet on the bottom and pour boiling water into it so it'll evaporate and cause steam and keep your bread from drying out. I learned that. So I do want some more work on the pizza dough because I really enjoy pizza. But my dough lacks. It's better than it used to be. A lot better. I started making pizza dough by hand with a buddy of mine back years and years ago. And it was fine, but it was never fantastic. And he did his a different way. I did more traditional pizza dough, but he would do like a mixture of like an almond. Was it almond? It was like a protein dough. It was much better for you. And he made smaller ones. And I was like, well, if I'm going all in here and I'm going to make pizza, I'm going to make pizza. And so traditional dough, sausage and mushrooms and peppers, and I don't remember what all I put on it, but it usually would come out looking terrible and tasting delicious. Especially you go with like a stuffed crust option. Anyway, this one's all about food. We're just talking about food today. All the foods that I enjoy. I love making nachos, chips and dips, or especially I've got quite a few chip and dip recipes over the years. That is a favorite of mine for sure. I'll eat way too much of that, but I do enjoy making stuff like that. And I've even experimented with taking my Mexican stuff and just making it into a dip and then just eating it with chips. I like take all the ingredients that would be in a burrito and just make it into a dip instead. I wish I liked Velveeta. I do not care for the taste of Velveeta, but it would make things so much easier if I did. If I could stand eating Velveeta, it would not be good for me. Again, don't get this wrong. I would wind up going back on the other side of the scale and get heavier and heavier if I liked Velveeta. But it would make dips better. It would make it easier to do that. I've just never been able to find a way to cover up the taste of Velveeta enough. So if I make a cheese dip, I make a roux by hand and just add my own shredded cheese. And I actually plan on doing that this weekend, maybe next weekend, because that might be a bit much. Two big heavy cheese dishes I still don't try to go too much on the weekends, and that's kind of a bit much. But I did not get elbow pasta to make macaroni and cheese. I got egg noodles to make like a cheesy egg noodle dish. I've never done that before. I'm excited to try that. I just like experimenting with things, and especially with good food, stuff like that. I used to put egg noodles and do like a stroganoff. I haven't done that in a while because I used to do that a lot because in Wyoming, when we had a Walmart that we could shop at, I could get the beefless tips, which they have changed the name of. I wish that they could just be called plantless and then the name of the meat. Plantless? No. Plant-based. It bothers me. I know for legal reasons and also to distinguish and things like that. But it sounds so stupid to me when you look at the packaging and it's like BE''F. It's like, that's not beef. It's Beth. And also, just call it plant-based beef. I don't care. Just put the word plant-based in there because it's different than... Anyway, I used to be able to get that a lot, and they had a really good brand of Gardein. That's the other one I think I was trying to think of. I can't get that up here, and it's incredible. It's way more expensive here at this place, and it's hard to get all this stuff. The plant-based options go like that. I'll go, okay, I want to make these 3 meals. Let me go ahead and plan out like 3 other ones as well and try to get all of that at once. And whatever I don't, it's frozen. So whatever I don't use this week, I'll use next week because it's just a random chance whether or not we're going to be able to get anything up here. The grocery stores cannot keep the plant-based stuff in stock. So anyway, I used to do that a lot. I learned how to do those steak tips, those or beefless pieces, whatever you call them, were really good. And that with egg noodles and a sour cream sauce with I get a mushroom broth in order to make it. Make a roux out of it. Oh, I haven't had that in a long time. That would have been a close second to use these. For the first time in many months, I was able to get, instead of just chicken options, a plant-based meat option that was beef. So anyway, yeah, quite excited about that. And I'll make some cheesy noodles at some point, but maybe next weekend. Save that for then. I don't remember what else I put on the... Oh, I've just got like a box of pasta and some sausage. Plant-based kielbasa. I usually would use the kielbasa for like a rice and beans, but maybe I will. I think I'll put rice and beans on next week's because I'm trying to... Even though I eat rice and beans during the week, when the budget gets, especially towards the end of the month, where I'm like, oh, that's what I've spent so far. Let's try to curve that back, and let's just eat rice and beans on the weekend as well. But I'll do them differently or spice them differently. Boy, I enjoy lentils. I've been eating a lot of lentils during the week as one of my beans because, as I learned, a lentil is a legume. So I do that, and it's a nice, easy thing to do during work because I just walk away for 2 seconds and go throw in some rice, throw in some beans into the rice cooker, the pressure cooker, turn them on, walk away, go back to work until they're done. Good stuff. So anyway, this was the food episode. If you were hungry beforehand, I'm sorry. If you're not now, well, you don't eat like I do. You don't enjoy the same type of food that I do, so makes sense. Oh, I got potatoes. Oh, what was I going to do with potatoes? Oh, I remember. I already talked about this, didn't I? I think I talked about this before. And that's probably why I decided to get potatoes this week. I think last week I talked about how I started watching all the Studio Ghibli movies. And I would make myself a meal. And if it wasn't an Asian-inspired meal because of the content that I was watching, where I'm like, oh man, this looks so good and everything, I would make kind of like KFC's potato bowl or whatever they made it some way. It was just like potatoes and corn and chicken pieces and gravy and cheese, I think. And I would make that myself. I'd use a white gravy instead because white gravy is a lot easier to make if you're not cooking with a meat option. So you do that and some plant-based chicken nuggets or something like that. Oh, I would make that. And that was delicious. I would usually use instant mashed potatoes because the point was not to spend a long time. I would make the food, as quickly as I could. Just pop the nuggets in the oven and instant mashed potatoes with hot water. Make it all come together. The roux would take longer. There's really no way to I guess if you get a packet, but at this point I just don't usually buy a packet. I've been making white gravy for so many years by hand. I learned how to do that when I was a teenager. Anyway, I decided to get potatoes to make that. That's a lot for, I'm realizing now, that's a roux for the cheese, I definitely have to split that up into next week. I can't do all that in one weekend. It's way too much. But anyway, I wanted to make a potato bowl. Maybe I'll watch a Studio Ghibli movie. I'm almost through them all. But I used to do that. That was a regular treat for me on the weekend. I would sit down and enjoy a big bowl of food and watch a nice movie and then sometimes nap right after if I ate too much. That's how I relax on the weekends when I'm not busting my butt, literally falling out in the snow looking for wildlife or editing or whatever else that I consider to be more productive than just sitting and watching or sitting and eating or sitting and playing games or just sitting. Usually it's kind of the thread between all of them. Anyway, good stuff. This was the food episode for sure, as I've said multiple times now, and I will continue to say, and I'll probably title it something to do with food because that's what I have. That was the question for today to answer. I hope it was interesting to listen to me talk about food for a little while. I didn't get a question recently. I got a comment. Basically, somebody was just like, hey, I really enjoy this. This is really cool to see. I was like, yeah. I enjoy going out and doing this stuff, and I hope that showing it to people, they're enjoying it as well and doing that stuff. So hearing that feedback of like, dude, keep it up. This is cool. Great. That's thrilling. I'm glad that some people enjoy it. All right, I'm hungry. I wonder why. I'm going to go home now.